Alright, welcome to episode 68 of Auto Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, which I finished recording a minute ago, I do believe, we had lots of different things happen, which is crazy because that's usually what happens in one of these episodes. Anyway, so in the war we saw the capitulation of Italy, how the French and the Germans and the British and whoever else had started to reinvade into the western areas, liberating the country. The Libyan colony, how it did collapse. The Russians are amidst collapse at the moment, as all of their three capitals that they've had in their history have been taken, and now people are just retreating over here and eating dirt because it's all gone really, really badly. The king has fled, over here, by the way. The Germans are also invading into western Poland now, and the Norwegians are fighting up against the Swedes, which really caught them off guard. Most of the colonial fronts have ended, such as Sumatra and also up here in Nova Scotia. However, the one in Ethiopia is still continuing, and at the very end of the episode we saw Oman join the war, declaring war on Turkey and trying to get all of their land back, and potentially this bit over here, because I think they'd like that back. I also updated the naval layer with the joining of Germany and France, which changed absolutely nothing, so that's good. And first off, what I want to do is look at Sweden, because the Swedish are now at a significant disadvantage because of the fact that Germany just joined the war. That's really bad, because, now they're entirely surrounded by Norwegian naval stuff. Their navy is entirely pushed back, as the German navy is able to help them out in defending from the Polish. They save these people on Gotland. Why do I keep saying it like that? Is that how they actually pronounce it in Sweden? I have no idea. Anyway, so Norwegian troops now begin the invasion in, and with naval superiority all around the Swedish country, they can invade in wherever they like. So they invade in towards the capital, because that's the best bit to invade, and they take Stockholm without too much. Why do I pronounce Swedish places strangely? What's wrong with me? They take Stockholm without too much issue, and move in on the eastern coast. German troops also help to invade into Malmo in the south, and also towards the city of Gothenburg in the west. If any Swedish person ever watches this video, tell me if I'm pronouncing stuff right. And then moving to Scania. There's one final bit left here in the middle, which tries to hold out, but I'm trying to cut it short. It doesn't. Anyway, so meanwhile, the Germans are invading into Poland. They don't have much naval stuff, so I'm just going to merge it. Damn it. Merge it with the Norwegians because it looks nicer. I don't know what to do with those colours. So there we go. It happens, and it's just a combined navy. They're both red anyway, so it doesn't matter. They move into this territory and try to fight up against the Polish, who are now really kind of struggling. Luckily, the Ukrainians can hold this territory, and also luckily no one lives there, so it's fine. The Polish are going to make a counteroffensive here in the central regions, as Ukrainian troops who aren't really worried about anything because Ukraine's not on any of these front lines start to help the Polish retake some of these cities, especially in the south, pushing up against the German borders down here. The Germans are currently the third strongest country in the world, so it's kind of unlikely that they lose Poland. However, with the help of Ukraine and Turkey, they might be able to do it. With the help of Ukraine, Poland might be able to make them lose. They do start to reinvade. However, the Polish in the south will be making an invasion into German territory, taking a city over here, and also in the south we see the Hungarians making an invasion through the Alps, which apparently the Hungarians are good at fighting in. And actually some of this stuff is Bavaria. So they start to invade into here, and Germany realizes that maybe joining this war was a bad idea. The Turks will also try to push back against the French over here. However, they completely fail, especially because the Hungarians aren't holding their lines very well up here in the north, as they're invading into Germany. And the French take back 3 more cities. They also invade around into these territories over here, and take another city down in the south. So yeah, that was pretty tough for these guys. But these Turks are having a pretty good campaign fighting elsewhere, so it's alright. The Germans and the French managed to liberate some of these territories, and if you're in Alsace, you should be afraid. I mean, look at them, they're just entirely surrounded by war. Actually, so is Austria and whatever this country is, Transylvania or whatever, so that's kind of interesting. And yeah, I'm just going to pause the video for a second for you guys. Alright, the video's back now. And why did I need to go off? Because I needed to grab this different colour of red. Because in the middle of the Turkish country, there is a revolution occurring. As the people of Mesopotamia, the old country, the really, really old one, the first one, you remember. You remember. Yeah, they rebel against the Turks. Don't know if that was kind of predictable. Maybe. They're going to try and declare their independence. This was spurred on by the Omani country. These guys aren't super cooperative. Historically they haven't done a whole lot together It's just that the religion was made by the Mesopotamians, and the entire personality of Oman is their religion. So they really, really like the Mesopotamians. It's just that Mesopotamia and them haven't really had any opportunity to cooperate in the past. The Turks also occupy loads of Somalia, navally at least. So that's good. Speaking of fighting in Oman, the Turks completely pushed back the Omani military, because Oman's military is completely destroyed from the war they fought against Turkey like 10 years ago. So they're not doing great here. Turkish troops move in through the north and also over in the east, pushing up towards the capital down in the south. They're going to move in and try to save this territory over here. The Demand territory is just kind of afraid. They've got no real leader, so it's kind of easy to deal with, I suppose. And yeah, they just continue to move around in Oman and towards just completely surrounding the country. However, the Mesopotamian rebels in the central part of the nation, some of the richest parts of this country, I guess, aren't these territories, are really doing some work. They didn't realize how strong the sort of desire to be an independent nation was in Mesopotamia, but apparently it's fairly strong. So they start to really take more territory, and different spots are going to pop up around here in Kuwait. There's a major group. We also see another group here in the Levant, and the Turks are scrambling to go, why is stuff going wrong for us? They're going to send some troops in, especially into this Mesopotamian group around these cities, but they can't get into the actual city area because they're just not good enough. They managed to push back some of this territory, but the main bit where they're succeeding down here is Ethiopia and Oman. They just can't get past the rest of these territories. Speaking of getting past territories, up here in the north, the Russians, well, they're losing all of their territory. Ukrainian troops are continuing to move westwards, eastwards, through Russian territory as more and more cities fall, and it really feels like Russia is going to capitulate. A new government will take hold in Russia as a military dictatorship is put in place. However, the monarchy will start to fight against that. The Ukrainians, why are they bothering that? The monarchy will start to fight against it, and just generally things are going really, really badly for this country. The monarchy is going to continue to try to wrest control from the military, and eventually they do succeed in that. However, it just means that more and more losses can occur. The monarchy decides to stay in the war as they believe that the Europeans will send them more supplies and troops, but like nobody's going through this water, so they're not really going to do that well, and unfortunately the rest of your territory is very disconnected. However, the Koreans decide to send some military equipment through the Baikal country, and this will really, really save the Iranians. There's even volunteer troops that are sent over here, as this is why the Europeans like Korea, because Korea is just a kind and chill guy, and it'd be really bad if the world didn't have Korea. So, yeah, that kind of just believes that they exist. This manages to kind of save the Russians, because it looked like they could capitulate, and then like a load of Ukrainian Astrakhan troops would just go and fight in the east, and that'd be really, really bad for Europe. So they have, in a way, actually been saved by the Koreans. Well, I'm not saying that if Russia collapsed, they would lose, but they might. So yeah, that was nice of them. Anyway, not really any new fronts created, so I guess we can continue on with these ones. As down here in Oman, more things are happening badly for Oman. Both of these two cities are taken over here, and the country will fall back to its very most core territory down the south. That's not good. The Mesopotamians, however, are having more successes up in the north as these two bits of territory are joined together, and that's good. We can head over back to Italy because that front's been kind of important in this war. First of all, we can see the Hungarians entirely pushed out of southern Germany. That's good if you're German, not if you're Hungarian, because you kind of wanted that. But the French are having more successes, especially up in the north, as the German troops now chase back the Hungarians into this territory, sending the Hungarians back to like Veneto and whatever's down there. The French also start to invade towards the central core territories of the Italian country, getting right on the borders of the capital. They also retake Corsica, which is kind of funny. Anyway, German troops are also now sending out the Polish troops in their southern territories as the Norwegians help them out with that. And yeah, really bad things are happening to the Polish. The Germans now move into some of these eastern sort of territories in Czechia, I believe, and they get towards some southern, less populated things, but now on the border of the Hungarian state, which does actually save the... Damn it, they're invading Scotland. It does actually save the Germans, Polish, as the Hungarians send some troops from their capital, which is right at the border there. And yeah, a new front line will develop all across this territory, but if we look at the naval layer, we can see that the Polish have a problem, because both the Norwegians and the Germans, two countries who are far stronger than both of them, are now invading towards their territory, and already single-handedly Norway got into like the Gulf of Finland by themselves. So with the aid of the German Navy, and also like Dutch and British and French ships, they're not really being used elsewhere. Actually, the French are being used down here. You know what I mean. The Norwegians will be successful in making a landing in Polish territory. I just need to go grab this, and then I'm back. Yep, and by Polish territory, I mean both of these islands, so not the best stuff. But they make another landing north here in... Is this Liguria? No, that's up here. I don't know what I'm saying. In this northern territory of Latvia, so that's nice. And the Germans continue to move into Kaliningrad, which is now kind of becoming Prussia because the Germans own it. And yeah, that's cool. Well, Memmel's over here. They kind of had a border that looked like that for a second. Anyway, I'm spinning out of control. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, yeah. Just a lot of anyways, apparently. The Russians are now rallying behind the fact that the Koreans are giving them support, and the country is now filled with morale and conscripts. I was going to say volunteers, but there's definitely no volunteers. Just more conscripts. Like, the age of joining the military is going to be really, really low in Russia. It's a really good thing that war crimes haven't been invented yet. They've been invented, they just... Nobody knows they're war crimes yet. Because there's so many illegal things happening in Russia at this point. The war is really, really dark in Russia. It's extremely horrible what's going on here. And it is kind of extremely sad in this fictional scenario what have caused to happen. Oh well. Anyway, so the Turks are doing a pretty good job at invading into Oman, and they get really, really close to the major capital areas. How the Mesopotamians are spreading their sort of, I don't know, patriotism. I can't speak. Nationalism. Let's just say that. I was going to say patriotism, but I think I just have the tism. Anyway, they move around here into Azerbaijan and take over more territory as more pockets of Mesopotamian support territory start to pop up, and they're just kind of proclaiming that Mesopotamia should be free, and the Turkish are doing a really bad job at stopping this from happening. You see just more and more pockets of Mesopotamian support appear, and as these various groups start to link up, more and more bad things are happening to the Turks. They're now having to go around here into Israel or Civilisation. Whoops. It's the bigger country, and it's the one that I knew was there first. Sorry, I'll call it Civilisation from now on. Sorry. But they do manage to wipe out this group and some of the southern parts of this group as well, so that's cool. Nice. But yeah, but still doing alright, except the French have now taken the capital. It was actually a joint Dutch, French, British thing. It wasn't just the French. The French aren't single-handedly beating back these guys, because they can't. But they are actually working on defeating the Hungarians, some more German troops moving into there, and a special German mission we had where they invade this country for some reason. No, they invade into Hungary, move to Poland, moving towards the Hungarian capital, and now the Hungarians can't save themselves from this, and the German troops will actually start to invade into the northern parts of Hungary, yeah? They're taking the capital, which is actually in Slovakia, and the Hungarians are having a really terrible time, but they did plan for this. They kind of knew the Germans might take the capital, so people retreat back to this city. However, rebellions are things that are occurring a lot throughout these countries, because all these nations are nations who attacked a lot of countries. So a main rebel sort of group that we see occur, give me a sec, is this dark green one. I don't know if you remember this one, but it's Bulgaria, because both the Turks... Oh no, damn it. I can't put it on the same bit. What colour do I make it? I don't know. The Turks, the Bulgarians, and of course the Ukrainians all work together to capitulate the nation of Bulgaria. I just can't. I need to make this one really dark for Turkey. There we go. They all work together to capitulate the nation of Bulgaria and also their allies. And now all three of these areas are suffering rebellions that are pro-recreating the nation of Bulgaria, which is interesting, seeing as Bulgaria for a long time was the second most powerful country on Earth, which is crazy because it's just Bulgaria. That was like a really strange part in this series. We didn't have any strong countries at that point, so it was really weird. Anyway, the Hungarians send all their troops out of Italy, which the Turks really, really hate because that causes a collapse in their front lines, just so they can protect some of their own territory, which, you know, fair. And the Germans are pushed back in those areas. However, the Turks are also being pushed back in northern Italy as they have to retreat to some of these other cities. So yeah, not great for the Turks. They're suffering rebellions from Bulgaria, rebellions from Mesopotamia, and only one good thing has happened, and that is that they've finally collapsed Oman. But Oman dies like a martyr, really. I also lose Socotra. Damn it. Because with the end of Oman, which signifies kind of like their entire religion. I don't feel like a religion. Oh, the capital's over here, apparently. Oh, no mind. I thought it was Oman. The Mesopotamians become even more pro their cause, and all these groups are going to really start to link up together as they proclaim themselves a real country. And actually, we see Europeans trying to send supplies to this country. The only thing is they can't really. Another country joins the war actually, and it's going to be the blue one right over here. The blue country has done basically nothing throughout its existence. However, they will invade Astrakhan, and it's going to completely catch Astrakhan off guard. The Koreans weren't sending these guys any supplies. They've just been building up their entire existence, which has been like 500 years, because I don't think they've ever invaded a nation, so that's fun. Astrakhan starts to really lose territory over here, and with the support of the Russians in the north, Astrakhan has a major failure on their front in Russia. The other countries, it's strong, but it's not super strong, and the entire government system isn't super strong, so they have a huge collapse in this territory. The Ukrainians also suffer a bit of a collapse, but they reorganize their military stuff and restart the invasion into the territories lost by Astrakhan. So yeah, more bad things happen to the Russians. This is really quite a sad time for Russia, but the Koreans are still sending support, so it's kind of okay. Speaking of kind of okay, Poland is definitely not kind of okay, as the Germans are now moving in towards their capital city, which is one of the oldest and most important and most popular cities on Earth. It's the old capital of the Holy Polish Empire, or just the old Polish Empire, and the Germans finally take it. It is the biggest battle in the war, probably out all of the war, as the Germans take the city, but the Norwegians also have more successes in the Gulf of Riga, taking all of the territory around here, and yeah, this is just going really, really badly for the Polish as their nation starting to capitulate and collapse. We see territories over here going, you know what, I don't like Poland. But the Ukrainians are sending some stuff to try and stop that from happening, and actually a small division is sent to retake the Polish capital, so that's successful. But that's all that is successful, really, so that's a shame. And in fact, we're going to see another country join the war, and it's going to be the blue northern Spanish country. Why is this important? Well, number one, they can get supplies to Mesopotamia, which they don't really care about, but and also they can invade here into the Sinai Peninsula and move around in Saudi Arabia and Jordan. And basically, the Turks have kind of lost all control over Arabia now. They can't really supply those regions, and the fight down here in Ethiopia is completely lost, as over a period of time, the Norwegian people down here retake that territory entirely. We also see the Polish send out some forces to try and help, but the Mesopotamians have extreme support from this territory, as the people of Daman don't have any leader. But the Mesopotamian leader guy, which is a religious, not religious, he's a royal guy who's related to the guy who last ruled Mesopotamia. He fled to another country, probably Carthage, but he's returned. That's nice. He's extremely far down the line, but they all went royal for the entire existence of the line, so, They retake Qatar, however, and the Turkish are just really, really losing down here in the south. You continue to see the Spanish forces take territory in this area, and now the Norwegians even cross over from Ethiopia to try and take territory from the Turkish, and yeah, everything is falling apart in the southern part of the Turkish war invasion, as we see this. But we also need to go to, just need to grab you for a second, because now all of Oman has just been completely freed, and the Omani people send out their military, or what is left of it, to recapture all of those territories for Oman. They also defer a load of this territory. The Norwegians defer a load of territory over to the Oman country because they're just going to be better at ruling it. The Koreans realized they could get a lot of support as a new idea has been created that I'll talk about probably in the peace treaty episode, and the Koreans are invited to this idea. So they're going to send a lot of support to the Russians because it's going to put them in good books with the Europeans, and this is a major thing that occurs as the Koreans really kind of empty out a lot of money to help the Russians out here, but it really pushes back the Ukrainians and also the Astrakhan country, who's really suffering a lot in this war. We see the blue country making excellent strides in pushing back the Astrakhan nation, and with Poland actually just fully collapsing at this point as German troops retake the capital city and Norwegian ones move in towards what would be St. Petersburg. Another country will join the war, and it's going to be the little Transylvanian country. This is basically always been my plan for this country. They would join this war, but you didn't think that would happen. They've done one more in their life. But yeah, they start to move in with their military that is fairly industrialized, just it's never really done anything. And they take over all the rest of the territory around here, The Germans in the south and Hungary will now take the capital of the Hungarian state and move in towards more central territories of the Hungarian nation. So that's bad for the Hungarians. The Italian country, which has now been reinstated as an actual nation again, they start their own invasion into the eastern parts of Hungary. Also over here we can see it isn't all fully taken over. Also not just entirely all taken over either. But this country over here, whatever it's called, like Romania or whatever, I don't know what accent I'm doing, but I'm doing something. They also invaded. This just looks really messy and horrible, but you know, oh well. And now the Ukrainians actually have a front line as German and Transylvanian troops funnel and just flow into this country, and everything starts to get really, really bad. The Bulgarian rebels in the south are doing a pretty good job, and in the east we can actually look at another rebel group, which is of course going to be where is it? The Caucasian rebels. So they start to pop up here, especially in the Turkish country, and also in Ukraine. Also in Ukraine. The capital's in Turkey, which is why the capitalist thing is in Turkey. And these rebels and just military people start to move into the Caucasian and Krasnodar areas of both these nations. Astrakhan's leader is killed in a coup, and everything's really, really going badly for these guys. I think joint invasion by the people of Euralia, Russia, I mean, and the blue country, Aral, I guess, like Aral Sea sort of thing, making an invasion to this country, taking out their Volga territories. And the Caucasians, this is definitely not good for Koreans, but we'll get to those in a second. The Caucasians invade into this territory, with the remainder of the nation going over to this. And at this point, there's now a load of the borders for the Ukrainians to fight on. Speaking of Ukrainians fighting, the Germans are moving in. The Polish, by the way, have also lost all of this territory. Up in the north, no one's occupying that anymore, and instead the Ukrainians do. Ukraine is really, like, they're holding the line for this entire alliance, as the Turks have lost basically everything that they were doing. The blue team over here in northern Spain, invades into the Turkish Libyan territory, as they just can't afford to protect that anymore. Speaking of the Italians, which I wasn't speaking about, but I was thinking about, they retake all of their territory, and now they fully invade in to southern Italy, actually finally getting this territory for them, which is nice. They also retake their Libyan colonies. That's nice for them. Lots of things are nice, apparently. But yeah, I was saying we need to talk about Korea, because something's actually happening to Korea. Because we just need to head over here to China for some reason. Don't know why we need to do that. Go into a new color. What is China do? That's right, guys. During the end of World War I, because yes, World War I is definitely coming to a close at this point, the Chinese start an invasion into the Korean country. Yes. I'm going to look at this after the peace treaty episode. But yeah, China is now invading Korea. The Koreans sent loads of support to the Russians, and this is of course China to go, you know what? The Europeans might have protected this country, but they're at the end of the war now, where everyone's exhausted and hates fighting. The Koreans sent a lot of support to the Russians. This is the perfect time to invade. The Koreans will scramble to save themselves, and they manage to push back a lot of the Chinese forces. They are not stronger than China, but they are more industrialized and have better equipment than China, but also less people. So yeah, that should be interesting. And to the guy that predicted there'd be a war between China and Korea, you were right. I bet you didn't think it'd be like this though. Anyway, this war is really, really coming to an end at this point. We need to go into the religion map because more rebels are popping up. That's not the right color, is it? Sure, I guess maybe it is. And the rebels that are popping up are Greek rebels here in the south, as they want to recreate the Greek state. Maybe not exactly like the one that used to exist, but kind of. The Bulgarian rebels also rise up in these territories as they retake a lot of stuff around Constantinople. In fact, the entire city of Constantinople is taken, and now a mix of Uralian, Western European, German, even kind of Romanian troops, also Central Asian, Caucasian troops, move into the nation of Ukraine in an extremely drawn-out and long invasion that costs so many lives, but it eventually happens. The Mesopotamians and Caucasians also help out in invading here, and in fact we even see Italian participation here in the south as they make a landing in the southern part of this country. Another nation will join the war, which is this pink one. Not that they do anything, but they send supplies and just kind of help out. It's more because they don't want these guys to be on the table at the end of World War I and them not to be. So yeah, they're very competitive in this time. What am I saying? Both these countries are very competitive. They don't like each other very much. That's why. But the Russians will effectively, I'm just going to color it all in, they will take over the nation of Ukraine, and now, at the very end of this war, we see the troops of all these countries moving in towards the capital of Turkey. And yeah, this is going to be the end of World War One. As finally Mesopotamian rebels capture the capital, and we will be able to look at a peace treaty in not very long. Also, I didn't save the map from the previous episode. That was silly. Anyway, thanks for watching the episode. I hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed making this a lot. Yeah, we're going to look at the peace treaty next time. I don't think I missed anything. Hopefully I haven't. Also, we can look at Korea and China going to war. That's going to be pretty crazy. But this video has already been 25 minutes long. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.